From MicrobeTV, this is Beyond the Noise, episode number 92, recorded on January 26, 2026. I'm Vincent Racaniello, and joining me today is your host, Dr. Paul Offit.
Hi, Vincent.
You don't have any snow down there, do you, Paul?
No, interestingly, in Naples, Florida, there's surprisingly no snow. In fact, yesterday it was around 80 degrees.
Well, we got over a foot of snow all day yesterday and last night, and it's like minus 9 Celsius, so brutal here.
My son lives in suburban Philadelphia. My daughter lives in New York City, so I've been getting the reports.
Oh, yeah. Everything is pretty universities closed down. The subways are not working. The trains are not working. So I'm home and trying to get things to work here myself. This is the video version of Paul's column on Substack called Beyond the Noise, cutting to the chase on important health topics. Today we're going to talk about Paul's recent column called RFK Jr.'s Strategy for Restoring Trust. So let's start by talking about what is it that RFK said he was going to restore trust in anyway?
Well, he was going to restore trust in public health agencies. He was going to restore trust in the Department of Health and Human Services, the FDA, the National Institutes of Health, and I guess most importantly, the CDC. He's arguing that the loss of trust that occurred during the COVID pandemic was because of public health officials. And in that, he was wrong. That's not why there was a loss of trust. And there has been some loss of trust. I agree with that. But I think the loss of trust in vaccines really at some level boils down to two things. One is that for the most part, you don't see these diseases anymore, so people are less compelled by them. And two, there is just a firestorm of misinformation out there, much of which comes from people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Center for Countering Digital Hate had something called the Disinformation Dozen, which were those 12 people or groups who put out all this misinformation, funded by tens of millions of dollars, and often supported by the alternative medicine community or the wellness community. And I think that more than anything else has eroded trust. Although there were things we could have done better, certainly during this pandemic. I think we did learn as we went, but I don't think that the loss of trust is because of us, because public health officials are trying their best to get it right and communicate good information.
So back in April of 2025, what did RFK Jr. claim about autism?
He said that autism was not genetic, that there was an environmental influence, an environmental factor, and he was going to find it.
This is a preventable disease. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics.
Not only was he going to find it, he was going to find it by September of 2025.
By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic, and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
So you think you're going to have a pretty good idea, huh?
We will know by September.
And that Donald Trump was going to be the president of the United States who was going to eliminate autism from this country, because he was going to find that environmental factor that caused autism.
It's interesting how just in a few months he could figure out this complicated thing, right?
Right. It is interesting, especially since autism is largely genetic. I mean, if you look at, sort of the twin studies and looking at relatives like nieces and nephews, and there is clearly a genetics for autism. I mean, you talk to groups like the Autism Science Foundation, which look carefully at this and compile data. There's probably at least 80% of autism is genetic.
So many scientists have been studying the basis for autism for many years, right?
Decades, right.
And does he talk about any of those data?
No, he only talks about data that fit his immutable preconceived biases.
But when did we first learn about autism, roughly? Do you know?
1943. That's when Leo Kanner published a paper about children with these kind of affective disorders, and he's the one who really coined the term autism from the Latin autos, meaning self,
which was really before many vaccines were given, right?
Right. So I guess in 43, you had a smallpox vaccine. You had a rabies vaccine, which obviously wasn't routinely recommended. So in 43, you had a smallpox. Like you also had a diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis vaccines by 43.
Now, what did RFK Jr. Say in September when he met his goal of figuring it out by then?
This was it. This was the big reveal. September 22nd, 2025. President Trump stood up at that microphone with people like Marty McCary from the FDA behind him and Jay Bhattacharya from NIH behind him and Mehmet Oz behind him. And this was going to be the big announcement, the big reveal. And like a game show host, President Trump stood up at that microphone and told us what it was that's causing autism. And what it was
I said, well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol.
Tylenol. Mothers taking Tylenol for fever or pain in the first trimester was the cause of autism. And he argued, did President Trump, that mothers needed to tough it out, work through that fever, work through that pain.
But if you can't tough it out, if you can't do it, that's what you're going to have to do.
And with that, we would have a dramatic decline in the incidence of autism. And then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. stepped up behind him and said that the FDA now was going to have a label change on Tylenol.
Today, the FDA will issue a physician's notice about the risk of acetaminophen during pregnancy and begin the process to initiate a safety label change.
So that mothers would realize, people would realize that it could be a cause of autism. He even went a step further. He said that Tylenol taken, say, after circumcision could also increase the risk of autism.
There's 2 studies that show children who are circumcised early have double the rate of autism. And it's highly likely because they're given Tylenol.
And I had a pediatrician call me 2 days ago saying that a mother had come in and had refused any sort of Tylenol associated with circumcision because she didn't want her child to become autistic.
So tell us about the use of Tylenol during pregnancy. So by the way, Tylenol, acetaminophen, paracetamol, those are all names for the same thing, right?
That's right.
So why is it used during pregnancy?
Well, for pain or for fever. And you could argue it's important to use it for fever. I mean, the data on this aren't great, but you can find some evidence that that a high fever in the first trimester of pregnancy may be associated with certain congenital abnormalities. I don't think those data are solid, but in any case, it is the groups like the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology certainly firmly support the notion of treating fever or pain with Tylenol because it's the safest choice. I mean, it's better than aspirin, which can have bleeding associations. It's better than non-steroidal inflammatory medicines, which also have their own problems. So it's really the safest and best medicine to take. But now you had the President of the United States and the Secretary of Health and Human Services saying that if you wanted to avoid autism, and not only that, eliminate autism, that we can just don't take Tylenol in the first trimester.
So how did RFK Jr. come to this conclusion? Were studies done under his direction?
He sort of held up 27 studies, which were all, not surprisingly, given that it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and this is always what he does, they were all methodologically flawed because they didn't have the one thing that you needed to have, which was sibling controls. That's what you want. You want a mother who took Tylenol during the pregnancy of one sibling but didn't take it for another, because that's really the best way to control for this. It controls for maternal health. It, to some extent, controls for family genetics. It controls for socioeconomic background. And actually, there were 2 studies that had been done at that time using sibling controls. He just never mentioned them.
Why not? If they were good studies, right?
Because they didn't fit his bias.
These were studies done in Sweden and Japan on large numbers of children, correct?
That's right. The study in Sweden, which was a study done between, I think, 1995 and 2019, of a couple million children, 186,000 of whom were part of this study. And it was clear that there was no increased incidence of autism or other affective disorders like attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity disorder. And then there was a study in Japan of about 200,000 children, again with sibling controls. And again, Tylenol was exonerated. He never mentioned those 2 studies, even though they existed at the time.
And more recently, there was a meta-analysis published in The Lancet. Can you tell us about that?
Right. And so that was a meta-analysis of 17 studies, all of which used sibling controls and all of which found that there was no evidence that Tylenol taken during pregnancy increased the risk of autism or other neurodevelopmental problems. So great. So now I think we can fairly say case closed. And now President Trump can come back to that microphone and have, again, all those health professionals standing behind him and say, I was wrong. Tylenol doesn't cause autism. I was wrong to blame mothers for their child's autism. And so you can, again, take Tylenol freely. Yeah, it's interesting how the stock dropped for sort of precipitously for a day, and then it came right back, because I think a lot of professional societies stood up immediately and said, no, don't listen to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., don't listen to Donald Trump. You can take Tylenol. All the evidence to date, and pointing to that study in Sweden and that study in Japan, show that Tylenol is safe.
So have RFK or Trump done what you have said, apologized and said that they were wrong?
No, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. never does that, which is sort of the point of this article. I mean, he will make false claim after false claim after false claim, and when data show he's wrong, he never, ever admits that he was wrong. He never apologizes for being wrong. He never apologizes for consistently misleading the American public about certain scientific truths. Never. That's his strategy. That's his strategy for making us trust the public health system, again, is to just misrepresent data again and again and again, and never come back and apologize for misrepresenting those data.
So what RFK Jr. is trying to do is understand why there was an increase in autism in the 90s. Is that correct?
Right, which is interesting because Tylenol, first came onto the United States market in 1955 and then kind of took off in the 60s and 70s. So you would have expected that were Tylenol really in any way associated with an increased incidence of autism when taken during early pregnancy, that's when you would have seen that dramatic increase in the 60s and 70s rather than in the 90s.
Yeah, but we haven't. And so that is another bit of data on top of all of these studies which show that there's no relationship between taking Tylenol during pregnancy and having an autistic child.
Right. Case closed. Study after study after study has shown that there is no association.
Do we have any idea of the effect of his statement on the use of Tylenol during pregnancy? Do we have any numbers on that at all?
I'm sure those studies have been done. I don't know them, but I'm sure there were women who then became hesitant, understandably. I mean, you have the Secretary of Health and Human Services, you have the President of the United States. Those are two very big platforms telling you not to take Tylenol. In fact, taking it a step further and saying, tough it out. It's on you. And if you don't tough it out, the implication is that if your child then is later found to have autism, that's your fault. And this sort of goes back to a time when autism was blamed on mothers, the so-called refrigerator mother, which was a guy named Bruno Bettelheim kind of promoted that children were, they had autism because their mothers were cold and distant. Mm-hmm. And that also wasn't true.
So, I mean, you say that many people would listen to Trump and RFK Jr., but don't they understand that these two lie continuously about everything?
I think most people do understand that. I really do. And that's why I think that the next day after Tylenol, the company sort of took a plunge or the company that made Tylenol took a plunge, about a 10% plunge, and then came right back. It's because I think reason did prevail. And I think reason consistently does prevail in many ways. I mean, if you look, for example, the Department of Health and Human Services, sort of behind closed doors, just changed the childhood vaccine schedule, making certain vaccines more optional, others just for high risk groups. I think pediatric practice after pediatric practice is just ignoring that recommendation and sticking to the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations. There was just an article in Stat News where they surveyed major pediatric centers to see whether any of those centers included this new childhood vaccine schedule of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and none were. So I do think people are largely ignoring the CDC, are largely ignoring the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, and rather going to agencies that are making decisions based on good science.
But shouldn't medical advice come from public health officials, not a lawyer, and a president who both know nothing about medicine?
Yes, that's where it should come from. I think it's really hard to watch this. I think it's hard to watch Robert F. Kennedy Jr. reconfigure the CDC in his image, or reconfigure the ACIP in his image, so that we don't really have experts that give us the best advice. Rather, we have sort of sycophants who are just saying what he wants to hear.
I'm sure you've heard this, but there's some associate director at the CDC said children dying of infectious diseases is the price to pay for medical freedom.
That was Ralph Abraham, who said that I think what he said is this is just the cost of doing business. The measles cases that we're seeing in the United States is the cost of doing business. I'm sorry. We eliminated measles from this country by the year 2000. And the reason we eliminated it was because a critical percentage of children were vaccinated. Now, measles still came into this country. Every day, presumably, measles would come into this country. It's common in the world. Americans would travel, visit a country where measles was endemic, acquire measles, and come back. That happens all the time. The reason that we were able to basically eliminate the virus here, or at least transmission here, was because we had a high percentage of the population who was vaccinated. Now we don't. Now a critical percentage of people are choosing not to be vaccinated, and so you're seeing these outbreaks. And so 3 people died of measles last year. That is not a reasonable price to pay when you have a vaccine that can prevent that. Sorry, that is unacceptable.
I think this Ralph fellow also included polio in that. He said, if we have polio, it's going to be the price to pay, which we worked so hard to get rid of infectious diseases. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's also cruel and mean punishment.
Yes, it's unacceptable. I think that, there's just this tension between individual freedom and public health. With public health, you care about your neighbor. With individual freedom, you don't.
So back to RFK Jr., how could he restore trust in public health if he's always lying?
If he wants to restore trust in public health, he should step down from that position and bring in people who have an expertise in the field and who care about the fact that children now are suffering needlessly from measles or tetanus or whooping cough or flu. You want to restore trust, then show that and put someone in that position who cares deeply about the health of children in this country and is not willing to accept that vaccine preventable diseases are coming back.
I think that's unlikely to happen, right?
Yes, I think that's unlikely to happen.
So perhaps later this year, we can have a change in the political makeup of Congress and he can be impeached. That would be the way to get around this.
That would be surprising, but I'm all for it.
We'll put a link to this column in the show notes so you can read it yourself. That's Beyond the Noise with Dr. Paul Offit. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Vincent.